Welcome, everybody, to Stay Curious. I'm your host, Mark Marquette. So glad you joined us from inside our studios in downtown Titusville in the American Space Museum, one of your little hometown museum that we feel we really celebrate the birth of America's space age like nobody else. And today, December 1st, 2025, kicking it off with the executive director of our nonprofit foundation, Gabriel Rothblatt, my binary star, as he deals with the money and I deal as director of the museum spending the money. So having a good time. Gabriel, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Had a great Thanksgiving. Um, Welcome to everybody coming back from their Thanksgiving vacations. Hope everyone had a great time with their families. And I am just so grateful to be here with American Space Museum and to you, Mark, for hosting Stay Curious here.
Well, thank you very much. We've been doing this for a year now, and we're having a lot of fun, and we're going to have more fun. 2026 is going to be really a tremendous year here at the American Space Museum. And if you've not become a member, please do so. But we got, if you're out of town, that's the way you can help us by becoming $100 member here at the museum. But between us here is a guy that I've met. We met at something before, but Dr. Richard Nederlander. Welcome to Stay Curious.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here today.
Great. I'm glad you're here. You're a Hoosier, I understand, from
Yeah,
from the great state of Indiana.
yeah.
And there's my Buckeye hat because we're going to be playing in the Big Ten championship. And you Michiganders out there, and there's a bunch of you. Uh, it was a great game in Ann Arbor, and I enjoyed the snow at the end. And I like the scoreboard even better that
hmm
we won there. But Richard, we're just going to have. Uh, we didn't know he was coming on until like a few hours ago, and I can roll with the punches. But Richard's got a company called Spargo that let's put your logo up there. That what do you want to do with Spargo?
Yeah,
What's the sales pitch? And scoot up there so we can hear you real good, Richard.
yeah. So the idea with Spargo Space is to put cryogenic fuel in orbit to refuel spacecrafts that want to get to the moon, Mars, and beyond. The problem that we're solving is that most of the fuel that rockets have are lost just getting out of Earth's gravitational well. So by having these fuel tankers with cryogenic fuel, these rockets will be able to get the fuel they need to complete their missions.
Good. That's good in a nutshell. And you formed a company that you're CEO of.
Yes.
You're also a senior space radiation environments engineer supporting NASA Gateway. We'll talk about that here in a little bit too. And but Gabriel, you have a personal connection with Richard as uh, chairman of the National Space Development Conferences, and your father has an award that's given out. Tell us about that and what Richard received.
Absolutely, yeah. So the Martine A. Rothblatt Space Settlement in our Lifetime Business Plan Competition. Quite a mouthful. So the Space Settlement in our Lifetime Business Plan Competition was is funded by an endowment created by my father, Dr. Martine Rothblatt, and through my role with the National Space Society. Which I was just the chair of the past conference this year, International Space Development Conference, which is the National Space Society's annual conference. At that conference, every year, we give out three prize purses, no strings attached. There's no equity taken. This is just cash, made available to three entrepreneurs that are having stellar ideas about how to increase and speed up human habitation in space. And so this year was our fifth year doing the space business plan competition. And at the conference each year I moderate the panel where we have the winners come in and talk about their business plans and pitch to a room full of interested people and investors. on what their idea is and how this idea is going to advance humans habitating in space. So it's been a great pleasure to be able to moderate that session on behalf of my family and that prize. And this, for me, relates back to the work of the museum, because at the museum here, American Space Museum, our mission is to preserve and inspire. And so as I've come on here as the executive director, I have been creating a campaign or a platform, however you want to call it, called The History of Tomorrow. And this is how our foundation and museum is capturing now the future history, right? What will we be talking about 20 years from now? Just as, as the history of space, just as we now talk about Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, shuttle, and ISS is drifting right now from the present into the past. So I am trying to link my work with the National Space Society and this business plan competition with the collection of the museum to create this history of tomorrow. And so I'm really excited to invite Dr. Nederlander onto the show, onto Stay Curious, to be the first chapter of one of these businesses, one of these winners, to come and join us and add the oral history of how it got done, right now. So I liken this, you think, let's back about 100 years, and we have that tycoon, Pickett, right? This oil tycoon. If we could have, him now, I think 20, 50 years from now, we're going to be looking back, and Dr. Nederlander and his work with Spargo is going to be, the future oil boom in space, right?
Yeah.
So it's a really exciting moment to be a part of.
Great. Thank you, Gabriel. And you guys chime in anytime. I hear myself talk all the time on this show, right? Marty Winkle over there, my co-producer for 5 years. He's nodding to that. Yep, enough in there. Sure enough. You doing okay, Marty? Say hello on that UCEC family microphone over there.
Hello, Mark, and I'm doing great.
Good, good. Well, we got a great December lined up. We're going to get a lot of guests rolling in here. And it's this month, just like poof, what happened in November, just like that, and it's gone in there. So, but that's because we're busy doing things, and we don't have a lot of time for grass to grow under our feet here at the museum here. Dr. Nederlander, let's ask you a little bit about where you grew up and how you got interested in space technology. Where'd that come from?
Yeah, so I grew up in New York City.
You did?
I did, yeah. And
Which borough?
in Manhattan.
Oh my gosh, okay.
So there weren't too many stars to see
No, there
at
weren't.
night. There was lots of
I lived there in
yeah.
1980 for a few years.
oh wow.
Very, very interesting time of my life for sure. but-
Probably had just as many stars. It's always been
Yeah.
blacked out, but
Yeah.
what really drew me was the Museum of Natural History.
Yes.
So I'd go there all the time, starting when I was young. They still have a natural part to like the showing meteorites and space
Neil deGrasse
exhibits.
Tyson,
Yeah, Neil
the
deGrasse
executive planetarium director there. Have you ever talked to Neil?
Yeah, he would always. So I did an internship there too in high school,
Excellent.
and I got to hear him speak, and he'd come to the interns and just chat with us. I was very awestruck. I was like, why isn't he doing more research? But I think he's doing a lot more publicity right now. So
Well,
eventually
he's
I'll get
the mantle from Carl Sagan obviously passed to him and Bill Nye the Science Guy, and we need that. We need, some of my fond memories, because I've been a space geek all my life, is Carl Sagan coming on Johnny Carson late night show, which he did about 50 times, and that was Joe and Jane America's connection with the space program is what I say on there.
Speaking about Dr. Tyson, Neil deGrasse Tyson and I share the same birthday.
Oh, right.
Same birthday as Robert
Robert
Goddard.
Goddard.
October 5th. All of us October 5th birthdays. And so we were just cleaning up some.
Your first name's actually Goddard,
I was
correct?
born Goddard. Yep, I was actually born Goddard.
Goddard Gabriel Rothwell. Yeah.
And so we were just cleaning up in the collections room, and I found a couple old frames. Some of them actually on the backs of these frames, they have the dates that there was original photos. They said like 64 in
Yeah,
there.
right.
So I took a couple of those frames and I just put those photos I got of me with Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson in these antique, 70-year-old frames, in there. So now in my office, I just got those 2 photos of Neil and I at the National Business Aviation Administration Association meeting in there. So
Awesome.
there's great photos. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, he's quite an influence. When I went to the National Museum of Natural History, Pluto was still a planet. All right, it still is a planet, but I went up there many, many times. And did you get into amateur astronomy? You have any siblings or dad or mom
Yeah.
in the sciences, or
So my no
dad
one.
a Wall Street tycoon? I'm interested here.
No, my parents are both into the media. So my dad's a Broadway producer, and my mom worked as a producer on CBS. So
Okay.
no science. I was like very left field in my
Okay.
interests. But after doing these internships at the Museum of Natural History, I ended up doing a major in astrophysics at Columbia University.
Very
Which-
good.
Still New York City, no stars, but
Right.
sometimes we take trips to like other states as part of some of the courses, and like in what was it, Arkansas, they had lots of stars out, and we got to
The
explore.
city slicker in Arkansas. That was a little culture shock maybe for
Oh
you,
yeah,
huh?
I mean, one thing you have to get used to is if you want to see stars, you got to be far away from the city,
Oh, yeah.
basically in total rural area. Get out the tent. Everyone's out in the tents and looking up.
Well, I'm no stranger to that. I think it's genetic in us that we look up and want to get starshine. I think it's just good and healthy for you, so forth like that. But we're going to talk more about you specifically. You all got questions about radiation in space. I'm going to quickly go through who's in Earth orbit right now. We can talk with Richard here about some of that because you got questions about that. We've had a lot of solar activity that we've seen auroras. Y'all, as far south as here, saw auroras, and that brings a lot of radiation. Where do the astronauts go to get away from that type of stuff? Maybe you know some answers to that. And we're going to talk about this fueling in space that's your company, because we all know this is a big boondoggle or obstacle to overcome for the Starship.
Yeah.
As to how to fuel in space. And we've got some great friends in NASA, and none better than Mr. Jay Honeycutt, former Kennedy Space Center director. And he keeps saying, to date, we've transferred about a teacup full of fluid, all right, from one spacecraft to the other. But we're going to talk with Dr. Nederlander here that China did something very spectacular, transferring fuels in there. So let me quickly go through some of my public relations stuff here that I had as backup that'll serve as a conversation as well. We're sponsored today by Manned Space on NASA Manned Space on Facebook, and our friend Mitch Rothman, who's and his wife Paula Rothman, financial as well as spiritual, let's say, supporters of this museum. They talk about us everywhere they go, and Mitch will be here on Friday to talk about the artist and the astronaut DVD documentary that he's involved with, Moon Day that he advocates. Let's make July 20th, Apollo 11 moon landing, International Moon Day, all right? So you'll enjoy Mitch on Friday. Our charity auction for Christmas, Chuck Jeffrey put together a quick charity auction here. Yeah, let me put that back up there. Is this Saturday? The gavel falls at noon, just 200 and some lots. It'll be a quick one, not the 450 lots he usually has, but something for everybody on there. And you said you like space memorabilia. Do you collect anything in particular?
Yeah, I've collected meteorites.
Oh, okay.
I've collected like 1970 pictures of the moon, but they're more like replicas. So I'm excited to see what this auction holds. I'm definitely going to be bidding.
Well, this is our 41st auction, and it's an education. If you're a little light in the wallet, you learn a lot about, wow, they really had that Snoopy poster there is worth $200 all day long, and we've got one signed in our workers gallery, and they usually go for 400 or 500
Wow.
when we get a dozen or so astronauts to sign them there. And that's a piece of tile from STS-1 that is sort of like you got to have that if you're a serious collector
Oh, yeah.
there. So, who's orbiting Earth? I always love to let people know, Richard, who is orbiting Earth. We'll talk about that in a second because we have a birthday of a really cool guy that I've heard from astronauts. This is one of the smartest guys around. Have you dealt with Terry Virts in any of your ISDC? Happy 58th birthday to Terry Virts, born December 1st, 1967 in Baltimore, Maryland, but he considers Columbia, Maryland to be his hometown. An Air Force colonel and a Star Trek fan. He spent 213 days in space, most of it on Expedition 42, 43, and STS-130. He flew with my girlfriend, Kay Heyer, who took the cupola up to the space station up there. See Kay, probably have lunch with Kay and a bunch of NASA people on Wednesday. So just wanted to give some love to Terry Virts. Did you say you've ever met him?
No, I don't think I have ever met him, but I am a fellow Marylander.
Okay.
But no, I can't say that we've ever crossed paths.
Well, he also set the world mark of circumnavigating the goal in an airplane. It was a jet, 46 hours and 40 minutes. And the person that was with him was one of the people that died in that submarine fiasco a few years ago. Was down in there. I would love for him. I'd love to talk to him, Marty. But the Nicole and Chris Stott, the astronaut Nicole Stott and her husband Chris, say he's on the board of his business, Lone Star, that's putting hard drives at L2 and on the moon. They say he's one of the smartest guys ever. He's just a great business guy. Are you a Trekkie or a Star Wars guy?
I've seen
Richard?
more Star Wars, but I mean, my dad is a huge Star Trek fan, so I've seen a bunch of episodes too.
Well, Terry is definitely a Trekkie, and he gave a tribute to Leonard Nimoy. He was in space on February 20th, 2015. And when Nimoy, who played Spock on Star Trek, died, and so he did the Vulcan-inspired salute there, which for the life of me, I can't do that. I got too many. Okay.
Can't do it the other hand.
On there. And he also wrote a good book, How to Astronaut. All right. So another book to read, Marty. Have you read that one?
I have it, but I have not read it.
You going to? He gets so many books from his family. He's probably still reading 2023 Christmas books, aren't you, buddy? Yes, we have a question there.
Yeah, a question from Set It Up, Blow It Up. So the ISS doesn't count as refueling in space.
Is that what do you think about that? Are they refueling anything on the ISS in space?
Yeah, so in order to keep the ISS stable in its current orbit, it constantly needs to push itself upwards because naturally it wants to be coming slower and slower down. In fact, that's one of the ways that NASA has been considering deorbiting the space station, just letting it run out of fuel and fall back down to Earth. So it does receive fuel, but it's not receiving fueling the way that we're envisioning it, like where you have something depositing fuel into a tanker. You have these cargo units like the whatever the Star SpaceX's unit, as well as Cygnus. They're delivering the fuel, and it's provided in.
Are they solid rocket? Are they solid fuel or? The Mir space station had like a big arm coming up that was its engine. They have an engine on it in there somewhere, right?
It's probably not cryogenic because it's very hard to handle the cold temperatures, so it's likely the hydrazine.
Okay,
I hope that
good.
answers the question.
Well, we've got a lot of people watching it. I know I'll have some good questions, none closer to our heart than Cliff Watson, who's down in Pomona, Australia. Good morning to you, Cliff. He's battling prostate cancer, and we're all with him. Cliff he's been on this show 4 times. on 2 Visits to America, and he's a dear friend of mine. Hang in there, Cliffy, buddy. We got RG Jubilee watching, mostly Park. Dean Babcock is in Illinois. We've got Tom Usiak in Pennsylvania. Freeway of Other is out there on the freeway, apparently. Neil 1030, he said he missed us, Marty, over the Thanksgiving break. Thank you, Neil. I'll bet you have a good question or two about refueling there. Steve Jokums, a great contributor. He said he's printing more shuttle tile decals for his inventory. He has a business that you can't paint those shuttle tile on a model of it. So he's got a decal that you put on the bottom and other things like that. So, and he is one of our strong financial contributors to the museum there. And hello there, Chris Callie, disguised as his wife, and Dougie Forrest, another artist. Chris Callie's an artist, and so is Doug Forrest. In fact, Chris, we've got his montage of Eileen Collins that you saw on the wall in the women's gallery is Chris's work there. So
That's an incredible gallery.
thank you very much. It's
I really like the bronze prints, the handprints.
Yes.
That's like so unique. It's just
Gabriel and I were talking about how unique it is today. We'd like to resurrect it with the other astronauts around here and honor them that way. Spaceview Park was built with the handprints of Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo astronauts, and we want to carry that tradition even a little bit further there. So let's do who is in space. Did you know there's 13 Earthlings orbiting this beautiful planet right now?
Wow.
We just added the newest group, the MS-28. Soyuz went up there. Apparently did something to their launch pad, and they're not saying it's going to take 2 weeks, 2 months, or 2 years to fix it. And that's the only pad they have access to Earth. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 vehicles parked. They don't have 8 actually. They don't have MS-28 on there at the ISS. All right, and talking about radiation, looking at this, there is a safe spot on there for radiation. Correct? Do you know about all that?
yeah. So when the solar storm happened, like last week,
Yes.
Houston had to radio the astronauts saying you all have to move to the radiation safe zone because this was a pretty significant event. It was a G4. It caused the New Glenn rocket launch to be delayed in order not to damage their payload, the Escapade. And
Yes,
they were
right.
fortunately able to launch the next day, but it was still risky because once you charge the magnetic field that way, it makes it easier for another blast to come. But nothing happened, and they succeeded beyond their expectations. It was amazing.
Yes, we've talked about that on Stay Curious. We do a lot of backyard astronomy. We talked about that and showed pictures of people with the aurora. Didn't get a chance to download pictures of friends that watched the show sending me snow pictures, Gabriel. Up in Limestone, New York, John Borelli had about a foot of snow in Limestone, New York. I think that's kind of southern New York there. And of course, at the Michigan Ohio State game, it snowed in the last half of that. And yeah, I like my palm trees. How about you? You had plenty of snow. You went to Indiana in there.
Yeah, I mean, I've grew up and worked in a lot of snowy states, and being in Florida just like 2 years, I'm like, I can't see myself living in another state.
Yeah, you get acclimated really quick, don't you?
Yeah.
You get used to it really quick. I'm looking for my.
Well, I'll hop in there real quick since I am a University of Vermont alumni. So I went to lived in Vermont for 5 years around going to college up there. My senior year at UVM was the coldest year in 25 years in Vermont. And so I was walking uphill, not both ways, but at least one way in the snow, through most of that time. And Lake Champlain, I remember, did not thaw out until the first week of June that year.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
And that's Burlington.
Burlington, Vermont. Yeah.
Yeah, I went to Burlington they had a good basketball team at one time back in the day, and I photographed with Sports Illustrated a couple times. Went there, and yeah, it was cold in there. So yes, hope y'all are hunkering down for the winter and getting ready for a big December here. Let's just talk a few minutes more about the ISS. This is the 10 occupants up there right now. And let's see, we've got the lower left-hand corner is the newest NASA astronaut, Chris Williams. He is of Panamanian heritage. I don't recall any astronaut of Panama from Panama type of heritage going to space. There he is. He's got a wife and 2 kids. And I always, 2 daughters actually. He left 3 women to go off this earth. And, you know, we love humanizing that sort of stuff, Richard, because the astronauts are just regular people. They got mortgages and car payments, and he's got a wife and 3 daughters that sure they're happy that dad's going up there, but you know they're going to be worried until he gets back. But he'll be up there about 8 months, and we're looking forward to continuing 25 years of continuous occupancy in
Takes
space.
work trips to a whole nother level by saying,
Yeah, it
going
does.
to the ISS.
Yeah, I'll be back, so forth.
What is the mileage on that?
25 years?
Yeah, well, your IRS mileage on the trip there and back. You
Yeah.
bill for 20-mile driving up here or there.
Yeah, but you're adding things to it along the way. You add a trailer, then you add a cargo roof the thing on there along the way. So, but yes, from 1999 when it was first occupied and then continuously in 2020. Why hasn't this won the Nobel Peace Prize? Is my question, Gabriel. 26 countries. Okay, 26 individual humans from 26 countries have lived in harmony on this
Well,
thing.
I would say that if this year has taught us anything, is that it is time for perhaps a review of the criterion around what goes into the Nobel Prize. And absolutely, the ISS deserves it. But what I understand is the reason why is that the criterion is that it has to go to an individual.
Yes, yeah.
And the ISS, I think, is incredible. I think it's the closest thing really to the Panama Canal. We're talking about have a Panamanian up there on the ISS right now. But both of these two things are incredible achievements that took multinational efforts. We really say, the U.S. built it, but it's in Panama. But the reality is you go down there and you look at the history, people from around the world took part of it. It is a unifying technological development. So is the ISS. And I would say the ISS, more than anything, is responsible for the end of the Cold War. And as we see the ISS coming to the end of its term, we see a total new return of a lot of these Cold War politics. And so I very much believe that it will get its day. It may be posthumous, for the ISS, but I think history really will look back and say that the ISS was an era, of peace, of trade, of research, and I hope it does get its proper due.
Well, Gabriel, International Space Development Conference. You've got your family 40 some years involved with that. You've got, this is the only space development, that we've had, during, these dreamers. They're everybody's a dreamer. To some extent when you're wanting to explore, and then you get the engineers involved to get the practicality of it. But to me, it's like a blemish on humanity in general that 50 some years after the last moon landings that we don't have a base on the moon, like Antarctica, and swapping out every year 30 or 40 people, in 6 month shifts or something like that. We could do it. It's just always, I guess, the money, Gabriel. What does your experience with the ISDC, why haven't some of these things been built that are pragmatic and practical things to do for humanity? Is it just the money, or is it Joe and Jane America really don't get a hold of it like us space geeks do? What do
Yeah.
you think?
Well, money is always just a means to an end, and so it's never the money. You know, it's we blame it on the money. It's an easy excuse to say, but it actually pales in comparison to what we spend on other things and other ways and time. So really, you can only say it's a victim of its own success. So the ISS has led to cooperation, and because of that, we didn't have competition. And so, at the last ISCC, I said, I called it Together Beyond, and I used the proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And we see that again. China is going fast and going on their own, but that's not sustainable. If you want to go far, you got to go, and they're learning that. We learned that going to the moon. We went fast and we stopped. And so now we are going together, and the ISS is an example of that. China going fast, trying to get up there, and they are learning that they need to cooperate. And it's actually one of, I think, the new horizons that we've seen, is that them dealing with space debris has actually opened the first lines of cooperation between the West and China in space, and they had to learn that the hard way. And if they, and not just them, I won't put it just on China, because I think actually we, have a lot of faults for preventing China's cooperation with the ISS, and that was a shot in our own foot to do. But in reality, they will find themselves, China, in a position that they need help, and their success is because they are behind the eight ball, and they are being propelled by competition. And so it's not, at the end of the day, it's never money. Money is always a means to an end. But what is exciting about this new frontier is the competition. And Dean Kamen coined a term that I think that we all can learn from. And it's a mixture of the cooperation and the competition. They call it coopertition. And that is going to be the path to success in space.
Well, love that from our executive director here. You see why Gabriel and I get along so great. He's smarter than I am. No, just no. You're talking about the space debris that busted the windshield, so a window on China. They've had their own little rescue mission drama that apparently they sent up an empty Shenzhou capsule, and then I think you touched on there the fact that the U.S. Congress is not cooperating scientifically at all. It's like against the law to deal with China. Marty, do you remember astronaut Rusty Schweickart being here 2 years ago? Oh my gosh, he thinks that was one of the worst things ever to set back science in general. The cooperation with China and USA is vital in many things. China has brought back, like 5 pounds of the moon's backside, and hey, we got this. We're not going to share it with you now because we don't, because your Congress doesn't want to. So, yeah, Rusty Schweickart was, oh my God, he was all over that we need to open up the cooperation scientific channels. That is how humanity gets along. And one of our best friends here, Nicole Stott, whose sleeping bag you saw, Richard in the women's gallery there, that she slept in for 90 days on the ISS. Her beautiful book emphasizes, 1, we're all Earthlings. 2, we all live on a beautiful planet. That's our green screen. And 3, the only border that should matter is the thin blue line that keeps us all alive on this earth. So let's get to Richard Nederlander here. What have you run across this geopolitical barriers in your education?
I mean, yeah, definitely. So
Definitely.
definitely.
In what ways?
So after my undergrad, I went to grad school and got my PhD in electroengineering at Vanderbilt, and there was this constant concern about the ITAR regulations. So that meant
ITAR.
ITAR, yes.
International Traffic and Arms Regulation. Is that
Okay.
correct?
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
So anything related. So my research was in space radiation effects and how it impacts electronics, and a lot of that falls under
Ooh.
the ITAR
Yeah. Defense
regulations.
systems and everything, of course.
And so for that reason, we couldn't do any type of collaboration with China or other countries that have really smart populations. And that was a bit of an issue because if you look at the research papers coming out of China, they've been also doing a ton of space radiation research. It's not like because we're not working with them, they suddenly aren't doing good work. They're doing phenomenal work, but we are not able to collaborate in that way.
Wow. That's interesting there. Well, I see we got some good comments. Dean Babcock's anxious to hear how space refueling is done. Fred Klein, thank you, Fred, for your comment. Gabriel Fred says Robert Zubrin of Mars Society comments on why no moon Mars base is all at the top instead of pork programs which accomplish things, pork programs which go nowhere in there. And Michael Bruno, he says if they ever figure out controlled fusion, then getting helium-3 from the moon will accelerate things immensely. And the last man on the moon, Dr. Harrison Schmitt, he's all about that helium-3 on the moon. And with the fuel, the H2O locked into the regolith, we've got tremendous resources on the moon to sustain ourselves. Yes, Marty?
Look, I just looked it up, and in 2023, NASA budget was $25.4 billion, but in 2023, we spent $57 billion on gaming.
So put that in, we just gave Argentina $40 billion this year.
Wow.
Argentina. We gave Argentina $40 billion, and the year and NASA's getting 25 less. Yeah, 23.5 was it?
1/2
not the
cent
money.
of your taxpayer dollars, 1/2 cent goes to NASA, and that's NASA. Now, don't know the military's got their own space agency that probably gets twice what NASA does. But yeah, look at what we've gotten for just pennies on the dollar. Our whole world has changed. These computers in our pocketbooks and in our pockets, and it's just amazing. Thanks for looking that up, Marty. And I hope that I don't know if it's going up or down. I think it went down a couple billion in the next
I do have
budget
a
there.
quick comment.
Yeah,
on
please.
So with the Space Force getting essentially like double the budget of NASA, we're seeing a lot more R&D that is more focused on national security. So Space Force by nature is more militarized, and what we had with the ISS was more collaboration. So part of my fear is when you have a priority on defense and making sure you control the space, you keep out potential collaboration with adversaries, which may
Good
be
point.
responsible for. I mean, you may solve wars through diplomacy and not need war.
Good point. There's the axiom: keep your friends close and your enemies closer. And that's a business axiom also. Well, let's get into Dr. Nederlander here. And there's our people in space. There's the Tiangong space station, a little bigger than the Mir, about 3 school buses put together. But here's your website on there. You've created this company. Extend every mission, slash every cost. And give us the sales pitch there, Dr. Nederlander.
Yeah, so as I mentioned in the beginning, when you have your standard rocket launch, it has to fight against Earth's gravity. And that takes a lot of fuel, and that fuel is the cryogenic fuel, like liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. And when you're in space, it's really hard to, or you can never get that fuel back. So what we're developing is a way to have cryogenic fuel in specialized tankers that can keep it cold to provide that fuel.
Because the boil off, they call it. is
Yes.
tremendous.
Hmm.
You see the boil off during a SpaceX launch, that's all boiling off as they're fueling it in there.
Yeah, and the space environment's very unforgiving. You have the temperature changing constantly because you're either in direct view of the sun, which
Mm-hmm.
produces tons of heat, or you're protected behind the Earth, and then it drops down to essentially 2 Celsius. So you got to have a way to keep the temperature of the tankers cold enough to constantly keep that cryogenic fuel from evaporating or turning into a solid or a gas. You got to keep it a liquid in order for the transfer to happen.
And you know how to do this.
Yes, I have a tremendous team that I've been working with, and we're in the early stages of R&D, but with the very tremendous grateful funding from the Rothbach competition, we've been able to spearhead a lot of this initial work.
Now, this is an infrastructure that is, of course, revolutionary, but this is necessity. You need gas stations along the way. Okay, this was a big deal. AI guided docking, multi propellant storage, radiation hardening, and station keeping. So take each of those 4 points and tell us a little bit about AI docking.
Yeah, so with the advent of AI and large language models also came something called vision language modeling, which is a way for instead of words being trained into the model, you have lots of images. And that way you can train a spacecraft to recognize any part of a given spacecraft on the fly. So this would be edge computing in space. It's processing the data, and you wouldn't have to, let's say, launch a whole new processor up to recognize a given port. So you're saving tons of money just by using AI enabled versus the state of the art right now, which is your lidar.
Now, that is something you all might be familiar with, particularly the cargo ships of Russia docking the Progress with the KURS system, computers uploading. One actually crashed into the Mir space station because the computers were messed up. So you don't need to upload a patch or a new data. With AI on board of the fueling spacecraft or the target,
Hmm.
you can it handles itself.
Yeah, it's just collecting images natively and then train it. The AI model inside the spacecraft is being trained off of those images.
How about the multi-propellant storages? You need oxygen. You need have to go in with a lot of methane, but you have an accelerant, usually oxygen. So how about the storage? What's the challenges there?
Yeah, so the biggest one, as you mentioned, was the no boil off. So you got to make sure that your fluid isn't evaporating quickly into space. And I mean, if you were to have your standard tankers out right now, it would be gone in like maybe a week. And we want these tankers to be out there for months, if not a year.
Hmm.
And in order to do that, you need to have really powerful insulation. And there's been a lot of progress in material science towards building insulation that can keep really cold temperatures for long periods of time.
Mm-hmm.
But part of it, you also need a lot of energy to power the cooling process. So that's when you bring in some solar energy. And I did see a comment about nuclear fusion. So nuclear fusion would also be a great way to power satellites and to keep things going. But right now, that's more of a dream right now. They got to get it to work on Earth first.
Mostly Park says, hope you're successful in your business. Spargo, hope to hear more about that. You're at the tip of the spear, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Of all this technology, and part of this that needs to be solved is the architecture of Artemis going to the moon is having a starship that launches from Earth, then it's empty and has to be refueled to have fuel to go to the moon and fuel to get off the moon. And how's that going to happen is the big mystery. And now uh, uh, NASA has retaking now contracts for the human landing system. HLS is what it's called. And we might get the Blue Moon instead of the Starship. The Blue Moon of Blue Origin was supposed to be landing on 5 or 6 missions down the line. What my question is, you know what's going on with the Starship,
Mm-hmm.
and that it needs to be refueled, maybe up to 10, maybe 15 times.
Yeah.
They don't know. What do you think about that? Is it, from your education, a doable scenario, one? And two, can it be done in the next 2 or 3 years to get us to the moon before China?
Yeah, so I think regarding refueling at this magnitude, we definitely be able to beat China as long as we maintain the current level of R&D. And I say that because we already have these reusable rockets, and no other country can compare to SpaceX or Blue Origin with their Starship and New Glenn. But in terms of how we're actually going to do it, you're going to need to have your refueling tankers being launched by the Starships and New Glens into orbits where these spacecrafts would then fly up, like on the second route, and then get fueled by.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, there is a bit of redundancy there, because you're going to have the Starship take the tanker, put in like maybe a GEO orbit, then come back down to Earth, and then go back up, because refill back on Earth, and then get that refuel when in GEO.
Mm-hmm. So let's get off of going to the moon. What's the practicality, bread and butter for your system here?
Yeah, the bread and butter is going to be R&D. So a lot of non-dilutive funding comes from the government through organizations like the SBIR and the STTR, which still needs to be reauthorized. So speak to your congressperson about getting that reauthorized. And there's also things like OTAs, other transactional authority, which provides other types of funding. So, and these are the types of contracts that ultimately make the progress. There's a lot of talk about venture capital funding these things, but they can only get you so far, and it's dilutive. So they may take a huge chunk of a company and only give, let's say, a couple of million. But for huge initiatives like this, you need hundreds of millions of dollars, which is, as I said, only available through government initiatives.
The building in space refueling depots. So the dream of this is what?
Yeah, the dream is to have like gas stations in space as just as like proliferous as like your gas stations on Earth. So if you can imagine driving from, let's say, Seattle to Orlando, you wouldn't drive with one giant truck with a huge tank of gas,
Right.
Never go to a gas station. You'd take multiple pit stops. So that's
That's what the space shuttle did.
yeah.
I said the space shuttle's ET tank is like, instead of filling up your tank at the gas station, you dig up the tank holding tank, put it on your roof, and siphon a hose into your tank. But but
It's incredible, but like,
so does and I'll have Gabriel ask a couple questions here. Gabriel probably wants to know, will you take PayPal? There,
It'll
so
be ship 4.
yeah.
It'll be ship 4.
Shift 4,
Of course.
Jared Isaacman, Shift 4 only. No Discovery cards allowed. So a satellite company that wants a geosynchronous satellite in orbit, Spain, America, whatever, they could now be thinking about having you refuel this spacecraft at 2 or 3 years down the road, instead of it just being out of fuel and going defunct. Is that something that's in the business model?
yeah, that's definitely in the business model. Satellites. So right now the in-space servicing economy is in its earliest phases. Right now you have a lot of satellites being launched with no refueling capability, as in you launch it and then you just either let it fall back to Earth or you put it in graveyard orbit. So that obviously can contribute to orbital debris, which is when you can have issues like what happened with the Chinese space station, where there was a damage there. So by making it refuelable, you're also cleaning up the space ecosystem. You're preventing what's it called, Kepler syndrome, where
Kessler
The
effect.
Kessler effect. Yeah.
the Kessler
Yeah.
effect.
Where we had a gentleman talk about
Chris
Kessler
Lee
effect.
Jones.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
from down south there. Kessler effect is things crashing into each other, smaller pieces crash into other pieces, and it's a never-ending domino effect that some people think has started already.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Some people do say that we've created enough junk already in space with no plan for mitigation that this cycle has already begun and is, just as we're seeing with this situation with China. There's enough stuff up there. The more we send, the more it's going to get hit by that stuff. It's going to create other stuff, and ultimately, it'll block the highway. Right? It'll be a just deadlock of junk up there, which also though is, I think, an opportunity that Spargo speaks to, because when we think of how are we going to mitigate, not only putting up satellites, we need trash trucks in space, right? And so how is that, if we have something that is capable of mitigating this space debris and collecting these things, it needs to stay up there and it needs to go and refuel. It's going to need to bring, that back someplace, right? And so this, just like you stop at a, gas stations become convenience stores. So I think just as people are going to have to come to this station, or this station may come to you, it may be capable, or not to to overplay the development of the hand, but if you're getting refueled, you probably have other waste, and so picking up that waste can be a vital component as well to what you're doing. And I want to bring up an example here that this really speaks to me about. When they first developed internal combustion vehicles, people said, that's great, but where are you going to get gasoline? And they had to invest in an infrastructure of fueling stations to make the vehicle viable. Same thing with electric vehicles. They said, hey, that's great, but how are you going to charge it? And what Tesla did, which was very great, and there's a eVTOL company called Beta who's already created charging stations around vertiports to do the same. That is necessary to make it viable. And right now, there's a lot of people, who've seen shuttles and they've seen rockets, and they said, well, that's great, but how are you going to refuel it? And so Spargo really does answer a question that's not just logistical, but psychological to all of us as taxpayers who are part of that economic decision to put these things up there, right? So I think it opens a door in more ways than maybe meets the eye.
Good points there. Marty's got a question.
Dean Babcock is asking, what kind of propellant will be in the refueling depots?
Yeah, so it'll be cryogenic fuels. So you can think of your cryogenic hydrogen and oxygen. That's what gets refueled for the rockets on the launch pad.
So that's a good part too. I mean, could this also, if we're talking about vessels, whatnot, I mean, they don't just need fuel to power the vessel; they need oxygen, to breathe.
That's true,
right?
yeah.
So, I mean, again, I think there are maybe other ways to consider the importance of these fuels, right, and their applications.
I think great conversation here, great questions. We've got the most intelligent YouTube watchers anywhere around the world. Let's see. I was going to ask you here, as we're enjoying Dr. Richard Nederlander here. He is you got your PhD in radiation.
At
Seen-
Vanderbilt, yeah.
What was your PhD?
It was in electrical engineering.
Uh-huh.
So
Marty's an electrical engineer.
Yeah, it is, brother.
Right.
this was a very specialized one because it focused on electronics, but specifically how the radiation from this from space, like the sun and galactic cosmic rays, can break electronics. So
Okay.
it had a lot to do with physics as well.
I want to. You worked on. He worked on the NASA Gateway as logistics or as a radiation environments engineer. Uh, Boy, the Gateway has fallen off the map in the Artemis world. It was going to be the kind of way station between where Orion would dock and the astronauts would, go through the other side and get into the Starship to go down there. We do know some Europeans involved with Gateway.
Yeah.
I do know that most of it's been built. The halo's been built, the habitat, right? What can you tell us about Gateway and your involvement with it? Is Gateway going to orbit someday?
So the Gateway is a station that would orbit around the moon to give astronauts a way to first settle.
Or
before-
anywhere.
Yeah.
As I said, they could be taken to Mars. It could be put in L2 orbit, couldn't it?
Yeah,
It's made to be habitable.
but for this Artemis
in
mission,
deep space.
yeah, but for this mission, it was focused on the orbit called NRHO, near rectilinear
Yes.
halo orbit. And
6.5 day orbit around.
Yeah.
the moon.
and
Near. Run that by again. That's a good NHRO.
and
NRHO.
yeah, it's a word that was used
Near
often.
rectilinear
halo orbit.
halo orbit. That's where Artemis is going to go in, orbiting, while astronauts are on the moon
Yeah,
in a 6.5 day orbit. And
and
it takes 3 days to get to the moon and back.
yeah, but that station would technically allow astronauts to stay in the moon orbit for up to a year, and this is like because you won't have your lunar stations built right away. That way, you have something pre-made, already orbiting. You just launch back up.
Okay.
But regarding if it'll be made or not, right now there's a bit of a battle between Congress and the White House, because the White House released their budget. They said they want to cut out Gateway, but Congress has put out a budget where they want to see Gateway funded. So Ted Cruz led that, and they were like, we're going to actually put in more money to help fund it. So we'll see once an actual budget gets passed who ends up winning out here.
But it's an ESA project more than an American project, correct?
Yeah,
I mean, not our
ESA's
money,
been-
I'm sure, is poured in there, but
There's a image showing each contribution to the Gateway, and there's like a ton of ESA projects being incorporated into the Gateway. So it's definitely not all the U.S. They're building out the Halo, and there's also another cargo transport being built by JAXA, so Japan. So they're also a big player too. So just cutting it out has the potential for upsetting these partners who've put in a lot of their own money into all this.
you ever run into an ESA young man named Keith Rock, R-O-K? He's a structural engineer on it. We've had him on the show remotely. Just wondered. So we've got 4 astronauts. Really, in 2 months, might be on their way to the moon. June or February is opening the Artemis 2 launch. What are the radiation challenges on these moon voyages?
Yeah, so the particles you really got to be worried about are protons and heavy ions. So these protons are first coming from the sun, but just getting out of Earth's initial orbits, you have to get through the Van Allen belt. And what the inner Van Allen belt, which is just like a couple hundred kilometers, you have really high protons, 200 MeV. So they're being struck by that. But in addition to that, then you have to deal with, as I said, the heavy ions. So those are things ranging from helium all the way to iron and beyond. And those can also affect you. So the way it affects you is it can break down your DNA. And you don't want that to happen on a large scale because then you can get cancer. So
And most of this is sun generated by our star,
a lot of it,
Okay.
yeah.
but there is cosmic radiation too from other stars in the universe near us, right?
Yeah, and that radiation has had to travel like light years to
Right.
get to us, because that's like to get from an exploded star that
Absolutely. Yeah.
radiation has
10
had to.
light years or would be a close, absolutely close.
Yeah.
Anything our visitors, our guests should know about the radiation and the Artemis missions?
Uh, yeah. So the moon landings are going to be a great feat. Like, it's the reason it's taking a while now is because there's a lot more advanced electronics being used, and radiation is very can break those down very easily. So they have to make sure that that's not going to happen. There's also going to be, as I just mentioned, a lot of radiation that can impact them. So they're going to have specially designed suits and housing. And if there's another um, coronal mass ejection that happens towards them, they're going to have to know where exactly to hide out in the gateway. So space is a very dangerous place. But
Mhm. Well, if we don't have the gateway and they're going in Orion, that has shielding on it, obviously, of course, right?
yeah, that has shielding too.
In there, and whatever the human's landing system will be, the HLS. Marty's got a question there as we're wrapping up this fascinating conversation with Dr. Richard Nederlander, his CEO of Spargo Space. They're on the cutting edge of figuring out how to fuel things in space, and Marty's got a question to that context, I believe.
Yeah, Dean Babcock is asking, how would the cryogenic propellants be transferred to the storage facility in space?
So transferred to another spacecraft, or
At least that storage facility.
transferred to the
So it
storage.
sounds like how are we getting the stockpile up there to begin with?
Oh,
think.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So it's going to be launched. It's going to be filled on Earth and then launched in your huge spacecrafts like the either the New Glenn or the Starship. So it's going to have to depend on either of those two rockets to then place it in the orbit that is most strategic for them to want to get their refuel, and then they come back down, and then I don't know, they put in their people and so forth, whatever they need to get to the moon. They then launch off of the Earth's surface. They lose their 60% or so of fuel, and then they get their refuel from the Spargo fuel tanker.
I think he's really asking, how did you do the transfer?
How to do the transfer.
Right.
So that right now the idea is pressure differentials. So you're going to have a way to force out the fuel with different pressures. You can't do that with gravity, obviously. So by forcing it out that way, you can create a vacuum that forces that fuel to move.
Excellent.
That sounds like valve to me, which seems to be a chronic problem for particularly some of Boeing's, but not just. I think it's talking with companies like Viaspace as well. It's not just like a faucet. That is a much more complex, difficult thing to master, particularly when we're talking about these compressed cryogenic fuels.
Yeah.
And it's not been performed in space, or has it? You and I were talking before we went on camera about what China did. Why don't you tell everybody some surprising new China space news?
Yeah. So over the past few weeks, 2 Chinese satellites were docked to each other, and people were guessing that maybe they were doing some type of in-space servicing, maybe a refuel. And then, like just yesterday, they separate from each other, and engineers are pretty convinced that it was one of the first ever GEO refuels, which is
Geosynchronous orbit, 22,000 miles above the Earth. Yeah.
which is incredible feat. But they'll obviously want to release their own China will have to say if they did that or not.
Right. But there's a whole group of people. Jonathan, I'm trying to think of the guy, Jonathan. He's very noted for tracking satellites, but there's people all over the world that can follow satellites and know what they're doing, and by their orbital inclination. And this was quite amazing that these watchers were seeing probably the first substantial refueling in space.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's only been, we did it in the cargo bay of the shuttle a few times, maybe transferred a teacup full from one vessel to another. That in itself is, we've got pumps or something, the connecting that has to push the fuel through, or is a vacuum that sucks it in? How's that work?
Yeah, so you're gonna have to have a really strong connector port. So that's there's a lot of great startups out there working on ports for just docking in general.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say like because you need ports for a whole bunch of things like just having people can get onto the ISS. That's a port, but people have been working on ports for the room temperature fuels like hydrazine, and some people have worked on ports for water. And there's this other fuel that the AFRL has created called Advent, which is a more eco-friendly version of like methanol, I think.
Okay.
So I've got a follow-up question.
Yeah,
on
sure,
that
Gabriel.
I think everyone would maybe benefit from hearing a little bit about. So we talked about, using a New Glenn, or a Starship to kind of get this stuff up there. And then you just mentioned how there are startups working, on the connector issue. So maybe if you could, enlighten us a bit about, how and why companies like Spargo matter in this ecosystem, and why Blue Origin or SpaceX doesn't just do it themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so these are very niche issues that these startups are addressing to solve. And so like with the connectors, you need to really have a ton of focus. It needs to be your whole mission because they're so highly complex. Same thing with the cryogenic in-space tankers, as well as the docking software. And while if Blue Origin or SpaceX were to make that their entire focus, they probably would be able to do it. They are, justifiably very busy working on building their huge rockets, their starships and their New Glenns, which by themselves, just to get into space, don't need refueling.
Excellent, good stuff there. Hope that you all enjoyed this. I do see the question there from Dean Babcock. Help him visualize this a little bit better. Is this going to be like the tanker pulling up at the gas station, and the guy gets out with the big stick and sees how much is in there, and then he gets out his big old hose and hooks it up?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, there's going to be, or is it all going to be autonomous and no humans involved?
Yeah, so that's where the autonomous software comes in, using the vision language modeling. So it's going to provide GNC commands, guidance, navigation, control commands that position it in such a way where the docking port of the fuel tanker aligns with your nozzle on your other spacecraft and creates that suction and allows for that pressure differential to occur.
Excellent. Now, we have transferred. I'm saying that's a misnomer when I'm saying the teacup thing, because the Mir space station from Progress had things that were transferred into the hoses, ammonia for cooling and stuff like that. Every time the shuttle docked, they would supply water, transfer water from into this the Mir space station, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So we have experience of taking fluids through, just not volatile rocket engine fuels, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It's a lot safer and easier to work with water, and I'm sure they've made a lot of great discoveries with fluids and microgravity because of that. But combustibles are.
Well, I've enjoyed this a lot with Dr. Nederlander. Marty, another question?
Yeah, a question from Mostly Park. What's the BAR/PSI needed while stored?
Yeah, so those are questions that we can't answer right now because it's more proprietary, but it's part of the bread and butter of our trade secrets.
Oh, Mostly Parked. They're trying to dig into your secret files there.
No, it's a great question because I come from academia, where it's
Uh-huh.
like everything, like you gotta really prove things with your research and your research papers. So early, I learned I can't share everything.
Okay, good. I've really enjoyed this. Gabriel, you've got some parting questions here. This is a fascinating friend of yours, well-deserved recipient of the National Space Society Martine Rothblatt Space Settlement competition there. Gabriel, these are the type of things I sense that that you're looking for, cutting edge things that are gonna, whatever it looks like 20 years from now, there's gonna be in fuel depots in space, on the moon, maybe Mars, right? Gabriel?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I mean, this is what we received nearly 100 applications in this last round for business plan competitions. And this is what sets Spargo out, from the crowd is I kind of exactly what he talked about is not just being a niche, but there is you have to be very specialized. And what they've done is really zeroed in on a very precise need with a missing link in the ecosystem and the technologies necessary to manifest, massive off-planet populations, right? And so, sure, we've got rockets, we got plenty of rockets, those are the big ones, but there are actually so many of these much smaller connectors and issues fueling that are preventing us from greater investment, greater adoption of these ideas. And so it's endlessly fascinating to be able to see those in development, to have a role in helping these ideas develop and become. It's been a great pleasure to get to know Richard, and it just actually so happened so we were able to do this because I've met a number of groups through doing this, but Richard actually happens to live here on the Space Coast, which made it very convenient for him to come here and join us.
We'd love to have you back again and update us on your research
Yeah.
and all that. You're the type of guest that we enjoy having, and then coming back and seeing how things are going. Because I remember Via Space, has been in our local hometown rocket company. Yeah, that's.
I don't
even
know if
appropriate.
that was just it's sitting here. You can see that. Oh, it doesn't come in, but there's a caution radioactive material sticker.
Yeah, I got.
It's got the green background.
Yeah, just part of the stuff we have hanging around here. Okay, and I've even got a moon hut, 15% off from the moon hut where the astronauts live there. A poker chip there. But, no, I'm serious when I say this is where we want to stay curious. Offer this forum to young minds like yourself, and then follow up with what's going on. So thank you so much. Please don't be a stranger here. And Gabriel, you have anything else to add?
No, again, thank you, Dr. Nederlander, coming on the show with us here. And, I want to ask everyone, check your inboxes while we were sitting here chatting. You should have gotten an email about our 41st auction coming up this weekend on Saturday, the 6th at noon Eastern time. It is online, so wherever you are, you can, hop on there and take part in that auction. And whether you are a member or not, through this auction, you can collect some space memorabilia just like Dr. Richard Nederlander does, and by doing so, help support the activities here at the American Space Museum, which we very much appreciate. Helps us continue the programming here at Stay Curious and to offer all the wonderful exhibits and activities that we do here. And thank you for being the best part of doing that.
Thank you, Gabriel. Well, you're going to thank Rosalie Jubilee for watching. Chris, she's local in Merritt Island. Chris Callie, fabulous artist. He is up in Connecticut. Doug Forrest, another great artist and works in the business there in the Los Angeles area. Dougie sent me some Endeavor pictures, buddy. How's that coming along? The new look for our OV 105. Gary Gerald, he's our Vidalia onion farmer in Georgia. Steve Jokums up there in the Illinois. Dave Stangy's up in Michigan. Hi, Mia. Little Mia's watching today, looking at the beautiful earth behind us there, Mia. Mark Thell's watching. Dean Babcock. Nell 1030. Freeway of Others as a daily watcher now. Cliff Watson. Good health to you, buddy. Hang in there. Tommy Usiak in Pennsylvania. Mostly Parked. Tom Celentano's up in Connecticut. Set It Up, Blow It Up. There's a new name watching today, Marty. And Fred Kilner with some interesting questions there. Tomorrow we're going to have Gary Allgaier on here, our resident docent and structural engineer. And Gary and I are going to talk about, is Artemis 2 really necessary? And the architecture of it? Are we going to learn anything? What's going on with Artemis 2? I'm excited about it, Gabriel and Richard. Let's see, we're here December, January, February, maybe just 60 days away from the launch. The window opens up February 4th. Hotels are already sold out for that weekend, so we'll see what happens. And February 7th, we're having a memorabilia collectibles show again. Gary Allgaier tomorrow. We're going to talk about the auction on Wednesday. Mitch Rothman of Man Space, in support of our museum, will be here Friday. So, and maybe we'll get another guest in here Thursday. But it's important that we do share what's up there for you to buy on our auction, because this is an important cash flow for our museum and a good way for you to support the museum. You buy something for $100, we're going to add a 20% museum fee on there. That's how you help our museum. So it costs you $120.
Do I hear 100? Do I hear 120? Do I hear
Yeah,
120?
120,
130?
Exactly. And
I
of
know I'll
course,
be bidding.
Chuck Jeffrey will be on that. So once again, thank you very much for a great sort of impromptu talk, but we've done this a while. I can make that chicken salad out of about chicken anything. So hope that you enjoyed it today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on.
Great. And we will see you and check up on you soon in there. And we'll have Gabriel on more. I'm trying to cajole him into taking over a couple times a month and talking about whatever he likes to talk about. It's very interesting that Gabriel and I are truly in different orbits around this museum with what we do on a day-to-day basis. And we're having a lot of fun, and I think we're making a greater impact in the community that probably hasn't been felt since they've built the Spaceview Park, in my opinion. So thank you, brother.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see y'all tomorrow.
Doctor there.
That's right. Thank you all for watching. It means a lot, and we hope that you'll continue to tell your friends to watch, share, and take part in our wonderful museum, where for over 25 years we've been preserving the birth of the American space age right here where it all began, Brevard County. Until tomorrow, I'm Mark Marquette saying we appreciate you a lot, and we can't wait to see you again to bridge the space between us.